The most brutal power move isn't revenge. It isn't confrontation. It isn't destruction. It's silence. It's withdrawal. It's leaving someone without an ending, without an explanation, without closure. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. Human beings are not truly addicted to pleasure or even to love. They are addicted to certainty. The mind craves finality. It wants to box things up neatly to know how the story ends. Without that closure, people unravel. They replay the story endlessly in their heads, clawing for meaning that never arrives. And that's why withholding closure becomes one of the most devastating psychological weapons you can wield. Closure sets people free, but silence keeps them chained to you forever. Think about it. Someone abandoned without explanation might carry on with life on the outside, but inside their mind is still locked in the same loop. Why that single question binds them to your absence more tightly than any presence ever could. If you give people closure, you release them. You untie the knot. But if you walk away in silence, you live in their head and they cannot move on. Machiavelli himself would warn, never explain more than you must. The more you explain, the more you free them. The less you explain, the longer you remain. Shakespeare's plays gave audiences closure. That's why they end. But Machiavelli's lessons never close. They live on, endlessly open to interpretation, still echoing centuries later. He knew the power of incompletion. It's the same with people. A fight where you scream, explain everything, and slam the door shut. Sure, it hurts in the moment. But a week later, they sleep peacefully. Compare that to a quiet departure, no explanation, no reason, no closure. They never stop thinking about you. They never stop replaying what happened. You haunt them not with your presence, but with your absence. Why? Because the unfinished always holds more power than the finished. The human mind cannot resist a puzzle left unsolved. When you refuse to explain, they begin inventing explanations themselves. When you don't reveal your intentions, they start imagining them. When you leave a story without closure, they rewrite it 1,000 different ways, and every version keeps you alive in their mind. That's the beauty of this kind of control. While they're trapped spinning theories, wasting energy, replaying the story, you move freely. You've already moved on, but they remain stuck in the absence you left behind. Look around. People beg for closure in breakups, in betrayals, in arguments. They say, just tell me the truth, or I just need to understand. But what they're really saying is, please release me. Please let me go. Closure is mercy. It's a gift you give to them, not to yourself. And Machiavelli would ask, why would you give your enemy that kind of gift? If someone has wronged you, betrayed you, or underestimated you, silence is colder, sharper, and far more unforgettable than words. You don't curse them. You don't scream. You don't explain. You just leave. And that unfinished sentence becomes a prison they build in their own mind. A prison where you are the guard and they can't escape. This is the beginning of one of the darkest yet most effective psychological laws of power, the law of withholding closure. It doesn't just hurt, it traps, it binds, and it leaves them circling you forever, long after you've disappeared. Every explanation you give is a rope you hand to the other person. With enough rope, they climb out of the pit of confusion and free themselves. But when you withhold closure, you take the rope away. You leave them stuck in uncertainty, and uncertainty is the sharpest blade. Fear fades with time. Anger burns out. Even pain dulls eventually. But uncertainty, it lingers forever because the mind refuses to let go of unanswered questions. This is why Machiavelli advised rulers to reveal less than they know, to speak less than they think. Gaps keep people guessing, and when people guess, they imagine. They replay. They project. And their imagination will always punish them harder than your words ever could. Silence makes their own mind your weapon. Think of the lover who ends a relationship with a long message carefully explaining every reason. Yes, it hurts, but the wound heals. Months later, they move on. Now think of the lover who vanishes without a word. No explanation, no warning, no closure. That absence becomes an endless loop. They lie awake at night wondering if you'll return, if they did something wrong, if they misread everything. And that question follows them into every future relationship. Consider the enemy you confront directly, screaming your reasons, listing every betrayal. They know exactly why you cut them off. They may hate you, but at least they understand you. That's closure. But the enemy you leave without a word, the one who never knows what you're planning, never knows if you'll return, that enemy never sleeps soundly again. Even in professional life, the colleague you disagree with openly finds peace once you've clarified your stance. But the colleague you leave hanging, never revealing what you think, never explaining your decision, they spend weeks, even months, second-guessing every word they said. That's not closure, that's dominance. Machiavelli knew that uncertainty is a wound that never closes. The absence of answers bleeds every time the thought returns, and people cannot stop returning to it. This is why closure is mercy, and mercy weakens power. To deny closure is to deny peace. And when you deny peace, you maintain control. So what's the real lesson? If you want influence, don't hand people the key to their own escape. Don't tidy up the story for them. Don't explain away your silence. Let them wrestle with it. Let them obsess over it. Because when you withhold closure, you don't just leave them wondering. You turn their own mind into your prison guard. This is one of the darkest forms of psychological leverage. Not because you destroy them directly, but because you let them destroy themselves in your absence. You don't lift a finger, you don't even speak, and yet you remain. Their imagination does all the work for you. An ending is release. An unfinished story is captivity. Closure lets them rebuild. Suspense leaves them circling you endlessly. And that is why the smartest move is sometimes the simplest: say nothing. One of the most powerful applications of this law is what we now call ghosting. Most people see ghosting as immaturity, as avoidance. But used consciously, ghosting can become a weapon, a tool of disorientation and control. The tactic isn't in vanishing randomly. The tactic is in when and how you vanish. Step 1, give them a peak emotional experience. Before you disappear, you create intensity. You mirror their emotions, reflect their needs, build connection fast and deep. You praise them, share something vulnerable, or spark passion. This high point becomes the memory they cling to. Step 2, vanish at the peak. Don't wait until the energy fades or the relationship declines. Leave when things feel good, when they least expect it. The mind is wired for story arcs, beginning, climax, resolution. When you cut the story off at the climax, you violate the narrative. Now they're addicted to a high they never got to finish. Step 3, say nothing. Not "I need space." Not "it's not you." Not even goodbye. Silence is the sharpest edge. The less you give, the more they invent. The more they invent, the more you live in their imagination. Silence breeds projection. They fill in the blanks with their own fears, their own regrets, their own insecurities. Step 4, reappear maybe. If you choose to return, you do so subtly. A vague emoji, a casual like, a short unfinished message. Just enough to stir the ashes, never enough to close the story. Now they chase, not because of what you gave, but because of what you withheld. This isn't cruelty for cruelty's sake. It's architecture. You've engineered absence into obsession. They dream about you. They hate you. They want to win you back. They want to erase the silence. And all of it, every ounce of energy they spend is spent on you. Whether positive or negative, their focus becomes obedience in disguise. Why does this work so well? Because people don't return for love. They don't return for clarity. They return for resolution. The human mind is addicted to endings. And when you deny them that ending, their subconscious drives them back to you, not to heal, but to try again. By then, the balance of power has shifted completely. You've moved on. You're detached. You've been free this whole time. Meanwhile, they've been circling you, building narratives, feeding energy into a story that never concluded. When they finally come back, they don't come back as equals. They come back weakened, negotiating from confusion. Machiavelli would see this not as emotional recklessness, but as precision. The silence is not avoidance, it's leverage. By withholding closure, you don't just end the connection. You set the tempo. You become the phantom inside their psyche, the unresolved question they can't let go. And in that space, even your absence has more weight than anyone else's presence. The brilliance of withholding closure isn't just in relationships, it extends to every arena of life. In politics, in business, in friendships, the one who says less always has the advantage. Words reveal, silence conceals, and what is concealed will always be feared, respected, or obsessed over more than what is exposed. Consider negotiations. A desperate person over-explains, justifies, reassures. They rush to fill silence, hoping to appear reasonable. But the strategist waits. They let silence stretch, and in that silence, the other side reveals more than they intended. They fill the gap with concessions, excuses, even secrets. The less you say, the more they give. Or think about leadership. A boss who explains every decision, who defends themselves against criticism, loses authority. Why? Because explanation is an apology in disguise. It signals insecurity dependence on approval. But a leader who simply acts, who offers minimal reasoning, radiates authority. They create an aura of inevitability. People follow not because they understand, but because they sense certainty. Even in rivalries, silence is sharper than confrontation. When someone slanders you and you refuse to respond, your silence unsettles them. They expected noise, outrage, retaliation. Instead, they face a void. That void forces them to wonder, did you not notice? Do you not care? Or are you plotting something worse? Their imagination tortures them more than any words you could speak. Machiavelli taught that appearances matter more than truth. By withholding closure, you manipulate appearances. You let others invent a story about you, one that often makes you seem more powerful, more dangerous, more mysterious than you really are. They don't see what you're doing, so they assume you're doing more than you are. And in that assumption, they hand you power. This is the paradox. People claim they want the truth, but in practice, they fear it. The truth closes the book. Silence leaves it open, and an open book keeps them reading forever. The human mind is addicted to resolution. Deny it, and you become unforgettable. Give it, and you become replaceable. That's why the most feared, the most admired, the most mysterious figures in history always left something unsaid. A pause, a gap, a silence that echoed louder than words. The greatest musicians know this too. It's not the notes, but the space between the notes that creates music. Likewise, in power, it's not always the moves you make, but the moves you refuse to explain that create dominance. So ask yourself, in your interactions, are you giving too much closure? Are you explaining too much, apologizing too much, clarifying too much? Every explanation weakens you. Every unfinished sentence strengthens you. Every silence becomes a shadow others can't stop chasing. Withholding closure isn't about being cruel. It's about recognizing that the mind cannot resist a mystery. And once you understand that, you realize silence is an absence. Silence is strategy. The trap of closure is that it feels noble. We're told that honesty is kind, that clarity is compassionate, that explaining yourself shows maturity. But Machiavelli would laugh at this. He knew that those who demand closure don't actually want truth. They want freedom. They want to be released from your influence. And giving them that release weakens you. Think about it. When you say, here's why I did it, you may believe you're helping. But in reality, you've just cut the chain. They no longer need to think about you. They no longer need to replay the story. You've given them peace. And peace is the one thing you should never hand your enemy. This is why the silent departure is more feared than the loud goodbye. A loud goodbye gives certainty, a closed door, a clear end. But a silent exit leaves every door open. They don't know if you'll return, if you're watching, if you've truly let go. That lack of closure turns into paranoia. They begin seeing you in every shadow, in every possibility. Even in love, closure can be poison to your power. Lovers who end things with long explanations give their ex the gift of healing. But the lover who leaves without a word becomes unforgettable. Years later, the unanswered questions still linger. Was it me? Was it them? Did I miss the signs? That endless loop ensures you live in their head rent-free long after you've disappeared. Machiavelli knew that power isn't just about presence. It's about absence that still controls. The figure who withdraws without explanation becomes mythologized. Their silence turns into legend. People whisper, speculate, build entire narratives around what they never said. The less you explain, the more others explain you. And their explanations almost always make you larger, darker, or more brilliant than reality. The danger of closure is that it makes you ordinary. Explaining reduces you to human scale, flawed, understandable, predictable. Silence keeps you above, out of reach, unknowable. And what is unknowable is always more powerful than what is known. Look at history. The leaders who died suddenly without final words became immortalized in mystery. The artists who vanished leaving unfinished work became legends. The rivals who disappeared without warning still haunt the memories of those they left behind. It's not what they gave that made them powerful, it's what they withheld. So ask yourself, do you want to be remembered as someone who made things clear? Or someone who left questions that echo forever? Closure is kindness. But silence is immortality. This is why Machiavelli's teachings endure. Not because he explained everything, but because he left gaps. Gaps that we are still filling centuries later. He understood that incompletion is eternal. And that's the law. If you want to live forever in someone's mind, don't finish the story. Leave it open. Leave it unanswered. Leave them haunted. Withholding closure is not just about power over individuals. It's about shaping entire systems. In every sphere of life, from politics to business to art, those who leave things unfinished gain influence far beyond the moment. People chase certainty like addicts, and the one who denies it becomes the supplier they can never quit. In politics, leaders often make vague promises, never committing fully. Why? Because ambiguity keeps the crowd hooked. A clear answer can be attacked, criticized, or disproven, but a half answer, a suggestive phrase, an unfinished thought that lingers. Supporters project their hopes onto it, opponents project their fears, and both remain trapped in the leader's shadow. In business, think about companies that never reveal their full roadmap. The secrecy fuels speculation, rumors, anticipation. Customers and competitors alike spend endless energy guessing what's coming, and that guessing creates free publicity. The less you reveal, the more they obsess. The mystery itself becomes marketing. Even in art, the works that endure aren't the ones that explain everything. They're the ones that leave space for interpretation. A painting that tells you exactly what to think dies the moment you understand it. But a painting that feels incomplete, that suggests more than it shows, becomes timeless. Each new viewer fills the gap differently, and the work never stops breathing. This is the Machiavellian principle at scale: leave them unfinished. The unfinished creates obsession. The unclear creates loyalty. The silence creates myth. And once you're a myth, you can never truly be defeated. What does this reveal about your own strategy? That in every interaction, you should resist the urge to clarify too much. Every time you explain, you shrink. Every time you leave things unsaid, you expand. The world fears a mystery more than it fears a known enemy. The known can be fought, the unknown controls. Think of your rivals. If they know your exact plan, they can stop it. If they don't, they waste resources preparing for a dozen possibilities. Silence multiplies their paranoia. Vagueness forces them into exhaustion. And while they spin, you move freely. Machiavelli himself would argue power is not about being liked or even about being understood. Power is about being unavoidable. And nothing makes you more unavoidable than silence that others can't stop interpreting. This is why withholding closure isn't just a tactic, it's an art. The art of incompletion, the art of silence, the art of leaving others suspended in the void you've crafted. And once you master it, you realize something chilling: you don't need to raise your voice, or prove your case, or even remain present. Your absence alone is enough to control the room. The brilliance of withholding closure is that it turns weakness into strength. Most people fear silence because they think it makes them look uncertain, awkward, or guilty. But in reality, silence can be sculpted into a weapon. It forces others to sit with their own thoughts, and their own thoughts are rarely kind. Think of an argument. The louder person believes they're winning because they're flooding the space with words. But the silent one, the one who listens, who refuses to explain or justify, they terrify. Because silence suggests confidence. Silence suggests knowledge that hasn't been revealed yet. Silence forces the other to keep talking, and the more they talk, the more they expose. Machiavelli understood that explanation is dependency. When you explain, you admit you care about their judgment. You show that their perception matters to you. And the moment you reveal that need, you give away power. Power never explains. Power declares, power moves, and then it lets others interpret. Closure is the same trap. By giving people closure, you admit that you care about their peace of mind. You admit that you are willing to ease their suffering. And that generosity might feel noble, but in the game of power, it makes you disposable. The one who gives closure frees the other. The one who withholds it lives on forever in their imagination. History is full of rulers, leaders, and creators who mastered this art. Some vanished at their peak, leaving their legacies untouchable. Some died without revealing their true plans, turning their lives into puzzles. Scholars still chase centuries later. Some ended relationships without explanation, ensuring that those left behind would never stop wondering. Each time, the silence outlived the presence. This is why mystery is more durable than truth. Truth ages. Truth can be disproven. Truth can be replaced. But mystery never dies. The unanswered question grows stronger with time. And if you want to be remembered, it's not your explanations people will hold on to, it's the silence they could never solve. So ask yourself what will outlive you. Your words neatly explained and soon forgotten, or your silence echoing endlessly in the minds of those who never understood you. Withholding closure ensures that when you leave, you don't truly leave. You remain, not as a memory, but as a presence they cannot escape. You become the ghost in their mind, the puzzle piece that never fits the story that never ends. And in that space, you are immortal. There's another hidden layer to withholding closure. It doesn't just trap the other person, it frees you. Think about how much energy people waste explaining themselves, defending themselves, writing long messages, chasing validation. All of that is effort spent on the other person's peace. When you stop giving closure, you stop wasting that energy. You reclaim it for yourself. Machiavelli knew that power favors those who conserve resources. Silence conserves. It saves time, emotion, and attention. Instead of pouring yourself into explanations, you remain composed, detached, untouchable. And the absence of words doesn't weaken you. It strengthens you because it forces the other side to carry the weight of interpretation. Closure is final. It's an ending. But withholding closure leaves things open. And in that openness, infinite possibilities remain. They wonder if you'll return, if you'll retaliate, if you're still watching. That uncertainty keeps them on edge while you've already moved forward. They are stuck in yesterday. You're already in tomorrow. This is why silence feels cruel to them, but liberating to you. They carry the prison. You carry nothing. They loop through questions. You don't even have to think about them. You've shifted the burden entirely onto their mind. That's not avoidance, that's strategy. In relationships, this means you no longer burn yourself out, trying to explain feelings that will never be understood the way you want them to be. In rivalries, it means you stop justifying choices to people who only seek to weaken you. In leadership, it means you refuse to argue with critics who don't deserve your time. Silence is not just an attack, it's protection. And here's the paradox. The less closure you give, the more control you maintain. The less you clarify, the more they chase clarity. The less you reveal, the more they reveal about themselves in the search for answers. In this way, silence turns them into an open book, while you remain unreadable. Machiavelli wrote that appearances matter more than truth, and silence allows you to craft the most powerful appearance of all, the appearance of depth. People will always assume there is more behind your silence than there actually is. They will mistake restraint for wisdom, mystery for strategy, absence for strength. And in a world addicted to noise, restraint itself is power. This is why withholding closure is not weakness. It's discipline. It's the refusal to give away energy, explanation, or finality that serves them more than it serves you. You don't explain. You don't apologize. You don't clarify. You simply move, and in moving you remain larger than words. In the end, the cruelest truth is this: closure gives peace. Silence gives immortality. And if you want to outlast, to linger, to live on in the minds of others, you must master the art of leaving stories unfinished. The final truth about withholding closure is that it transforms you into something larger than life. People can forget words, they can forget apologies, they can even forget betrayals once explained, but they can never forget an unfinished story. It scratches at the back of their mind, forever demanding resolution that will never come. This is why Machiavelli's wisdom survives centuries. He never tied things neatly. He left contradictions, fragments, and silences in his writings. And those silences became eternal. We are still interpreting him, still arguing about what he meant, still haunted by what he never said. That's the proof mystery outlives clarity. In your own life, this principle applies everywhere. In relationships, silence makes you unforgettable. In conflict, it makes you untouchable. In leadership, it makes you unquestionable. And in memory, it makes you immortal. Because people cannot stop circling around the silence you left behind. The greatest power doesn't come from what you explain. It comes from what you refuse to explain. The greatest presence doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being remembered in absence. And the most dangerous influence doesn't come from action. It comes from inaction that others can never decode. Closure is the end of the story. Withholding closure makes you the story. You become the unresolved question, the missing piece, the phantom that lingers in every mind you touched. They may love you, they may hate you, they may resent you, but they will never forget you. That is the law of incompletion, the law of silence, the law of power. To give closure is to free them. To withhold closure is to rule them. And in the end, the one who says nothing controls everything.